This is episode 310 of Jumblethink.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers all about their journey of turning their dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's show is Doug Ward. More about Doug in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, if you've never subscribed to Jumblethink, head on over to your favorite place to listen to podcasts and click subscribe. You can also head on over to jumblethink.com and you'll find links to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and more. Now let's jump into today's conversation. Hey there, welcome to Jumblethink. My name's Michael Woodward. I am your host, and we have a really cool show lined up for you today. Our guest on today's show is Doug Ward. Doug is a retired military veteran serving for over 24 years. During his time in the military, he held numerous leadership positions to include instructor and manager of 500 personnel, to being a troop chief of a hand-selected group of special communicators tasked with supporting and deploying into severe environments with special operation forces. Upon retirement, he supported numerous government agencies as a subject matter expert in non-standard communications and as a business development executive. These experiences have enabled him to pass on the knowledge and lessons of leadership under extreme conditions for companies needing management team building. Pulling from his past experience as an executive-level technology leader, he has built numerous successful teams based on building a common vision that is understood and predicated upon impact and purpose. His specialties include leadership, management, team building, vision, strategy development, consulting, organizational design and optimization, innovation and product development, project delivery and methodology, and change agent. Well, let's go ahead and join our conversation with today's guest, Doug Ward. We are here with Doug Ward. Doug, thanks so much for being on Jumblethink.
Hey, I appreciate it. You have a great show, and you've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm excited to chat with you. You have a company called Anchor Strategies, and you have a really cool story about how you ended up starting your company. Let's start at the beginning. You started your career 24 years ago in the military. Or you spent 24 years in the military doing some really cool stuff that helped teach you and train you for what you're doing today with Anchor Strategies. So talk to us a little bit about your service in the military, and thank you for your service in the military.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Most guys, they serve in the military. Myself, I was one of them, and I took it into a full career. And it started out in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Way back when. I was on the Yellow Footprints out there in San Diego.
Wow.
Did that. I was out for a little bit. I was going to go to college and decided to go back in the military. I still didn't have that maturity at that point in my life. I thought once you've served in the military, an initial tour, but I just didn't have it. So I went back in the military, ended up retiring out of the Navy. Now, when I served during all those times, I always tried to volunteer for tougher assignments. If it was something that was going to involve some fun and adventure, I wanted to be signed up for it. And I had the opportunity to serve with the SEALs when I was in the Navy.
Wow.
And back then, it was kind of a by name type of thing. People would hear about you and they would contact you. I was a communication specialist. So what happens is, we would go, I got selected. I made it in for a week of what they call screening. You have to take psychological evaluations. So you sit in this room, you probably get there about 7 a.m. and you take these. It takes about 5 hours, I think it was, to take all these different tests.
Wow.
Then you have some other interviews you got to go through. So there's probably about 3 or 4 phases of the interviews. And then the final one was where you walk in and there's all these people sitting out there, probably about 12 people in the room behind a table, and you're sitting at a chair in front of everybody all by yourself. And, they ask you all these different questions, and you have everybody there from the psychologist who interviewed you after you took all those tests. And, you also had to take the physical test. People are asking you just different things about your personality. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Or, they're basically asking you, hey, what are things you like and dislike?
Yeah.
And they're trying to get a baseline of who you are.
A heavy duty vetting session, to say the least.
Yeah. So, and you'd have all the SEALs. They screened, and their screening was a little bit different. And, I was a communications person. And I think at the time, there was not a lot of communications personnel there.
Wow.
I think there was about 75 tops.
Wow.
Out of that 75, now, when you look at it from a grand Navy scheme, just in the Navy, there's probably about 35 to 40,000 people that are in communications. So to be in that select group was very motivating.
Yeah.
And it was very intimidating at the same time, because you knew you really have to perform.
Yeah. Yeah. You really are playing with the most elite of the military at this point. You are serving their needs, and their needs are mission critical. Whereas the other ones, I'm sure it's just a different environment, because the SEALs are called in when no one else can help, when they need somebody to do and intervene in something pretty catastrophic, right?
Yes, exactly. And what we would do is, just to give you an example in your audience, when we would roll out the door, so I could be at home and my pager went off, you had 45 minutes to get to work.
Oh, wow.
Now that meant not speeding through town and breaking every law possible, but that meant you have 45 minutes to, get out of bed, throw on some clothes, and get to work. We all kept certain uniforms and certain bags prepared, all ready to go.
Yeah.
So we'd have, for example, a 3-day bag, a 1-week bag, and then we had another bag that was just chock full of a lot more stuff.
Wow.
To last us a little longer.
Yeah.
When we got that call, we would show up, we would grab the 3-day bag, we'd grab the 5-day bag, we'd drop the 5-day bag off on a pallet with our information on it. We'd take the 3-day bag with us, and we would get on a bus and we would roll out to the airport. And usually we would get there about an hour, 45 minutes after that pager went off, and planes would be landing. The ramp would come down. We'd load everything up as fast as we could, get everything set up. And the ramp went up, and we went off into the sky, flying away, probably in about 2 hours.
Wow. So it's a very demanding job. And I found it interesting that when you first started out, you said, I liked taking the jobs that were filled with adventure. And I guess you have to have that mindset when you are constantly facing the unknown, when you're constantly facing the immediate. You can prepare to an extent, and I'm sure that you guys were prepared in all kinds of situations, but you're responding, and it's a little rough and tumble, it seems like.
I think for someone looking on the outside in, it looks that way, but when you accept it mentally, it's not rough and tumble.
Yeah.
You just accept it and you roll with it, because you're so used to different changes going on a consistent basis. So you become very attuned to it, and you actually kind of thrive on that.
I'm sure that your specific role, being in communications, was critical, because that's what got information in and out. And, and part of leadership, and that's where we're going in this conversation, to talk about teams and leadership. I know that's an area of expertise you have. Part of what you're doing as a communication expert is you're facilitating teams to actually rely and trust and have the resources, the people around them, and the communication to get conversations that need to happen in real time done. Is that fair?
Yes, exactly.
And so when you're doing that, you have to be able to respond to a whole bunch of different personalities, a whole bunch of different structures, a whole bunch of different needs. Talk to us a little bit about how this sparked this journey of discovering and understanding how to build better teams for yourself.
When you're in those type of environments with those type of people, for myself, the team we were with, you learn not to take yourself so serious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do have to learn how to ask for help. Now, the way we were screened psychologically on a mental side, they wanted people that weren't going to quit, that you weren't going to give up. And they knew that if you had to, you're going to stay up 3 days to finish something, that you're going to stay up 3 days to finish it.
Wow.
Now, a lot of times, sometimes we would get sent off alone with groups, It could be like a joint team with maybe a few Rangers, maybe some Green Berets, the Army Special Forces, and SEALs. But you'd be out with those people. You are the only communications person. Wow. So we would be cross-trained on different communication specialties from the other guys, because we were a collage of different specialties: electronic technicians, information technicians, cryptologic technicians. So we would all kind of cross-train to a certain point, but we all had our specialty on what we were really good at.
What was your specialty, if you can answer that?
I was a cryptologist.
Ah, cryptology. So encryption and decryption and covert messages, it sounds like.
Yes, that. And then, of course, I also had, and to also get into that in the Navy, you also had the communications background, kind of like information technology.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So fast forward now, you spent 24 years in the military. You led a bunch of teams. You've worked in the communication sector, working with special forces and military. I said this the other day. I was talking to a guest, and he was sharing about his military experience, and I made the observation that military is one of those interesting careers in that it has a time limit. It's just the normal process where you retire, and then you get a second act where a lot of careers out there have a different kind of structure. You might jump from job to job to job, or you might be in a job till, you're in your 60s. The military is a little bit different. You have a second act where you obviously don't want to be done doing things. Tell us a little bit about that transition for you.
For me, it's actually funny what you just said. That's
Okay.
what I went through when I retired.
Yeah.
I came down to Florida, took a job at Special Operations Command as a contractor, and that was all because of my background and what I did. I was able to get into that job, and they had a need for that.
Yeah.
So I was doing, different types of communication requirements, but there was something that was just kind of missing. So then I said, you know what, maybe I need to become like a contractor or work for a defense industry company or some company out there and just kind of see something different. So I did that. I worked for two companies. One was in satellite communications. The other one doing routing and switching, stuff like that. But I was basically going back into the military and basically selling to them.
Yeah. So a lot of the same kind of relationships, but in a very different capacity.
Correct. People would come in and be like, oh, you're selling stuff now, stuff like that. But no, the equipment was good. The companies were good. The thing that I found that was unfulfilling is, for me, deep down in your heart, there's just something that's not there.
Yeah. And
for me, I started looking back on what do I really want to do? And that's when I started falling back on the leadership. After I'd been in between my tours in special operations, working with the SEALs, I'd been an instructor. I'd supervised up to 500 people. My last assignment in special operations, I served as a troop chief for a special communications troop that we had brought up out of scratch. And I really enjoyed that. And that troop was I learned a lot from, because we were what they called top heavy. And top heavy meant it was a very senior troop. All the people
a
in there
lot
were
of very vetted.
People.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of experience.
Correct. And, looking at that, it was a very good learning experience, because I had to learn to deal with egos. When you get people like that and they're very senior, but you just happen to be the one in charge, which I was, you start dealing with the egos, and you have to be able to play to their strengths and weaknesses, but at the same time, control the egos, even your own, for example. There's times, I had ego shots to myself because I didn't delegate with trust. When I was bringing guys on board, I brought them there to help.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was so used to doing everything myself that I wasn't delegating with trust. Now, are you going to follow up? Of course, you're always going to follow up. But I didn't delegate with trust. The guys ended up pulling me in, and they said, hey, a lot of us want to leave because you're not trusting us. And I was caught off guard because I didn't see it that way.
When you're in it, it's really hard to have that objective view of yourself.
Yeah, because you're not really looking in the mirror like you think you are.
Right.
It's like that we're here on a podcast. I've done a couple of interviews, but I never really realized what my own voice sounds like. It's the same thing,
it's a shocker,
right?
isn't it?
Yes, it is. But, getting those guys together. And the great thing was, it wasn't just those guys as managers, because they were, the middle management. I was more the senior management for the troop. And when you go across the military in general, like going into my company, the reason why I set it up is I was thinking, hey, there's a lot of what I learned that I see a lot of companies need.
Yeah.
And that is their middle management doesn't know how to respectfully push back on what a lot of people would call the ivory tower,
Yeah.
the glass palace.
Yeah. The power brokers and the team.
Correct. And what you do is so in the Navy, they were called chiefs. So you had your chiefs, senior chiefs, master chiefs.
Yeah.
And that group of people that I was in, we basically were the ones that provided the sanity check to the chain of command or the leaders.
Yeah.
And they would listen to us because we didn't have an agenda. If you had an agenda, you would get found out and it would kind of ruin your reputation. But if you didn't have that agenda, like you shouldn't, and you were given the, no kidding, honest, unfiltered feedback, that's what commanders wanted. And when they was, and the thing is, you have to understand is when they understand that you're going to give them unfiltered information, they might not want to hear it.
Yeah. But they know they need it.
And they learn to trust you even more, and they lean on you for that information.
Yeah. As we wrap up this first segment, you mentioned a couple keywords there. You were saying that as you made this pivot out of working in the military and into creating your own path, you go through this season of trying out different jobs and realizing that what you have to offer is some great perspective on building trust and leadership within middle management, middle corporate kind of spots. And I love that word purpose, which is our first question we always ask at the end of the segment, being that how do you find purpose in what you're doing now?
Knowing that you're going to have some type of impact out there that's going to positively, make a positive difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Not just, maybe in a person's life, but in a company. And if you do make it in the individual, maybe it helps them understand themselves better.
And then what is one challenge you're currently working to overcome?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. I would say one of the challenge is always trying to make sure you always have an abundant mindset.
What do you mean by that? Abundant mindset?
You have to look at things in a way where you don't look at things on a financial scale. You don't look at things on what I have or don't have, or maybe I should have pivoted, or taken a turn left, vice going right at the fork in the road. Mm-hmm. Things happen for a reason, and you look at everything as an opportunity.
That's really good. And what's the next big goal, dream, idea that you have that you're working on?
Well, right now is with the company trying to get set up to do, I want to have it set up also with the company to do company retreats where you bring in your leadership and we're going to run you through. So I've got guys on standby where we will have things set up. And it's not going to be like a boot camp. I don't want to do that type of thing. I think that's been kind of done.
Right.
But do those things where we get guys out and we get them to understand the managers. Who are you?
Yeah.
And get them to understand, listen, you have one vice president position, for example, and maybe there's 10 managers.
Yeah.
Don't worry about being the VP. Worry about taking care of your people. If I'm the person running the company, I want that person that division or that department within your company, I'm going to be able to tell who's the good leader.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the one where you can see the morale's high. You can see that they're always productive. They show up. They have a purpose. I think those are very huge because you can tell in people's body language when you come in.
Right.
When you come into work, you can tell how people are thinking just by the way they look at you.
Yeah. Super cool. We're going to take a break right here. And when we come back, we are going to talk more about anchor strategies, about leadership, and how you can really build trust with your people. We'll be right back. Hey there, it's Mike, and I wanted to let you know about an exciting episode we are working on for later this week. Our guest is going to be Chris Hammond. He is the talent buyer. He helps book all the amazing guests at the Wynn Hotel's Encore Theater in Las Vegas. We're super excited to have him on the show, and you're going to want to hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories of what it takes to book some of the leading guests into one of the most profitable small theaters in the country. Now, if you want to stay on the pulse of what's happening at Jumblethink, upcoming episodes, great events, and some other cool things we're working on, the best way to do it is head on over to jumblethink.com/ sign up for our newsletter, and also let's be friends on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You'll find those links at JumbleThink also. So head on over jumblethink.com. Let's connect. Let's do this journey of chasing dreams and ideas together, and let's change the world. Now let's jump back into our conversation with Doug Ward. We are back with Doug Ward of Anchor Strategies. Before we get rolling in the segment, Doug, can you tell us how people can find and connect with you?
Yeah, on the website is anchorstrategiesllc.com. I have a newsletter. You can sign up for that, or you can just reach out on the contact page. If there's information you want towards, a course, a seminar, maybe to just come in and speak, those things, all you have to do is fill out the form and I'll get it right away.
And we were talking before, a great way also to connect is LinkedIn, right?
Correct. I tell a lot of people, and I'm sure you're aware of this yourself. LinkedIn is just a growing platform, and if you're in the business world or you're trying to do anything of positive change, I think LinkedIn is a very huge platform, and to get on and to connect with people. Just connect with people. And there's a lot of people there you can just ask for help if you need something. You might not always get a yes, but if you don't ask, you shall not receive.
That's right.
And another way is I'm going to be starting up a podcast that's going to be opening pretty soon. Just waiting on the podcast gods to approve the final thing, right? It's going to be The Truth with Danger Doug.
Okay.
And Tommy Guns, my sidekick. And it's going to be about leadership, vision, purpose, impact. Now we're going to have, it's going to be a little bit lighthearted, but we're going to be interviewing, not just established people, but I want to talk to entrepreneurs. I want to talk to people out there who are changing the game, and because of their leadership, their vision, the game changers that, you might not see every day, but they're up and coming, and you will know about them soon.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds super cool. And what we're going to do is, as we always do, if you're listening, you don't have to worry about remembering all those links or anything. They'll be right in the episode notes. So all you have to do is click the magical button. It'll take you right where you want to go and check out what Doug's doing, whether it's the podcast, his website, or connecting on LinkedIn. All those links are there. Now, here's the deal. I, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, know that one of my hardest areas has always been staffing. I want to start this conversation on or kick it off simply by talking about how do you figure out how to build the right team for you? I know that culture is important. I know that the leadership dynamic of how you lead is important, but actually figuring out how to assemble the right team around you, what does that look like? How do we need to approach that?
Okay, so if you're assembling a team, and it's funny, I actually just had this conversation with somebody. It went into like a 2-hour conversation. But I basically broke it down like this. Unless it's a highly technical skill that you need for a certain job, you don't need to hire the expert. What you want is you want to hire the heart. You want to know that you have somebody that they are there because they really believe in what they're going to do.
Wow. And
you figure that out. And a lot of companies don't do this. They hire someone based on their resume.
Yeah.
They might come in, you're talking to him, you get a feel for him. Yeah, I kind of like him. I don't know. What about you, Bob? No, it's ask them, first off, where do you see yourself in 1 year?
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself fitting in here? This is what we do. I mean, how do you think you would fit in? Oh, well, I could do, and they, let that person speak, let them get it out. And then ask them, okay, so say things are going okay and you're fitting in, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah.
And then move on to 10 years.
Yeah.
Now they might say, and if they're honest, they might say, I don't know if I'll be here in 10 years. I mean, but figure that out. Say, well, you know what? Let's work on that. That's way down the road right now. But let's get you here. Let's get you moving, and let's get you part of the team. Now, you notice I said team.
Yeah.
And they say the employee or, I mean, when you look at it in a team environment and you bring them in, they're going to take it a lot more serious and they're going to have their heart in it.
Yeah.
And that's huge because you can have them there. And when people get hired, even in the military, We used to call it false motivation. You can get motivated. Everybody's motivated to a point, but motivation comes and goes. It's fleeting.
Yeah.
What you want is discipline and consistency.
Mm. That's a really powerful insight. There's so many different things right there to take away from what you're saying. The first thing I really resonate with is the fact that you hire for heart. And I think of the employees that I've hired, and we've hired a bunch for our web agency over the years. I think of the people who were our best team members, our best employees, and they were all people who weren't the most trained in the space. We had some of the most technically advanced people, and don't get me wrong, some of them were incredible, but a lot of them didn't have the heart and passion, the ethic to work hard to learn what they didn't know, to push into what they're doing. And the people with heart were buying into vision. They weren't buying into a job, whereas a lot of the more technical people that we hired were in for getting hired for a job. It just amazes me how often that, like you said, resumes aren't the best way to hire people. Resumes are a great way to pre-qualify, maybe not even that, but I love that you're talking about that. So talk to us. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me tell you a story about, there's two sailors I had. And I think this is really huge because you got to look at potential, but you never know what's in someone's heart. And I had a young man, highly technical, capable, and I ended up having to get him out of a hotel in the middle of the night. Somehow his mother got my phone number, called my house.
Wow.
I was an instructor, went out to this hotel. I could see that he'd been drinking. I already knew he was underage. So I'm like, okay, this is not good.
Yeah.
The hotel staff wouldn't let me in. So I had to find some excuse to get in. So I told him, I said, and I noticed there was a lot of empty alcohol bottles all over the floor, like fifths of alcohol.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, how am I going to handle this? So I went down and I went to the front desk and I told the manager, I said, hey, here's the thing. I'm knocking on the door. He's just looking at me. He's kind of unresponsive. And I don't know when he just last drank it. So I don't know if he's going into alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
So they came up and actually opened the door because they didn't want a medical emergency.
Yeah. Doesn't look good for them.
Right. So I got him. I called his mom back on my cell phone. I walked outside on the balcony. I gave him the phone. I said, talk to your mom. And I told him, I could hear him, he's kind of getting emotional with his mom. I don't want to come home and all this other stuff. So I finally just walked in. I said, hey, can I talk to your mom? Mm-hmm. Grabbed my phone back and I told the mother, I said, listen, I understand overhearing the conversation. He's didn't have a father, and you're trying to get him to come back. So here's the option. I'm not his father, but I'm his chief.
Yeah.
He has one of two options. He can stay here in the hotel, and I'm going to list him as unauthorized absence from the military, and I'm going to have him placed on charges of underage drinking.
Yeah.
I said, or he can get in the car with me, and I'm going to take him back to his room, and I got some stuff waiting for him tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're going to do this old school.
Yeah.
As long as he does what I say, he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So he finally got in my car. I took him in. Everything was going fine, got him straightened out. He got into school for his technical school. He had a 98.7 average. He was the top in his class.
Oh, wow.
And right before he was graduating to go to his first duty assignment in the Navy, he went AWOL again.
Oh, my goodness.
And the mother was there the day I was actually leaving to go back to special warfare. I was actually having my orders stamped so I could leave with my family.
Yeah.
And she said, is there anything you can do? And I said, no, there's nothing I can do now.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do. I gave him an opportunity and they're not going to listen to me. Yeah. I already put my reputation on the line. I said, he has to finally own up to his own mistakes. He has to accept that.
Yeah.
And I remember I was disappointed because he had done so good.
Yeah.
And then, I had another sailor a couple years later in special warfare. It was a female that was trying to get into special warfare, into our communications cell. And she was a little over 30, a little bit out of shape. But she swore to me, we gave her a physical test. She was out there doing all the exercises and she was real close to making it, but didn't make it. So I told her, I said, okay. And she was, no kidding, please, Chief, give me another shot. Give me another shot. I won't let you down. I said, all right. So we find, she made it through, got her in. She had gone to a school we'd sent her to and did not make the timeline out in the field with the backpack and all this other stuff on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like basically going through Marine Corps boot camp that the SEALs ran for the support personnel, like the
Yeah.
communications people.
Yeah.
And she barely missed it by like 2 minutes.
Wow.
And, I was given the option to let her go.
Mm.
So I brought her in the office. She had the deer in the headlights look like this is it. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I already had you scheduled for another school
Mm-hmm.
and I've been thinking about it. So I'm going to send you to that other school, but you better be exercising because you're going back to that training. That's the only way you're going to stay here. You have to go back and pass that training.
Yeah.
So I sent her to that other school. She was exercising. She broke some records in that school. It's a technical school.
Yeah.
The instructors actually called me. I said, okay, that's a good sign. Sent her back to the boot camp style training, and she made it.
Wow.
And the lesson between those two is you never know until you give somebody the opportunity. You're not always going to be happy with the end result, but you never know what's in someone's heart.
Right. And to an extent there, it seems like you have to test not only their passion, but also their perseverance in that. Here you have a guy who had all the potential and didn't persevere through the struggles he had and really excel past just doing well in school. He had to do more than that. And then you have this gal who had the cards stacked against her in some ways and had the heart and the perseverance to keep pushing through and have the endurance to get to the goal, the dream she had.
Yes, and she made it. And then down the road, I think it was like a year later, she got promoted.
Wow.
So things really worked out for her, and she really stepped up to the plate. And you just never know. The best thing you can do sometimes as a leader, you are going to have disappointments.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to give shots to people who have the potential. But like I said, you're never going to know what's in their heart. And if they're going to be able to persevere, like you were saying, it's very huge, but you'll never know if you don't give them a shot.
Right. I love that the other thing that you talk about with hiring the right people is that to build successful teams, not only do you have to hire for that heart, not only do you have to qualify them, but the job of a leader is to identify and play to the individual's unique strengths. What does that mean?
First off, a lot of people want to focus on everybody's weaknesses.
Yeah.
What I like to do is focus on the strengths, because if you focus on their strength and make them extremely strong somewhere, the weaknesses will be picked up by the other people on the team.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that.
So you're saying basically, really, as a leader, you should be helping enable people to not be well-rounded people necessarily, but to excel in the giftings that they have.
Excel in the giftings that you have. You can round out a little bit on some of the weaknesses.
Yeah.
What I like to do is try to minimize them. Now, some people would say, well, you'll minimize the weaknesses when you make them a strength. Well, you cannot always make them a strength. That's impossible.
Right.
So what you want to do is try to minimize and get them to rely on their strengths. With some people, they might be technically apt with just about anything that you give them.
Yeah.
But their weakness might be their ego. You're also dealing with personalities too.
Right. And I think some people forget that strengths aren't just about abilities. Sometimes they're about the other parts, like that personality or their arrogance or their ego. There are a lot more strengths and weaknesses than just ability.
Exactly. Are you going to quit?
Yeah.
When I was not, when you look at athletes, for example, I wasn't the most talented communicator.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I was one of the most hardest working communicators that was. I would work, I worked on a project one time because people said it couldn't be done. And I worked over 30 days nonstop, didn't take any days off, no weekends, nothing. And I was working 12 to 16-hour days.
Wow.
I remember my wife saying, why are you going into work? You're off today. And I said, no, I'm going in. I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
And I, ended up making this project work. It worked out really good for me. I ended up getting promoted off of that project. It helped me out. And I didn't know the promotion was going to be tied to that. It just worked out that way, which made it even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've got to push. You can have all the talent in the world. So a way to, I guess, correlate it, you have all these football players, right, in the National Football League.
Yeah.
If you look at Jerry Rice, he wasn't the fastest wide receiver.
Right.
He wasn't, but he was the hardest working wide receiver.
Yeah.
That's why he's in the Hall of Fame, because his work ethic, he got it down to a science. He knew what his weaknesses were. Okay, how do I mitigate those and minimize them? And he became one of the best route runners and knew how to beat a defensive back.
Yeah. So as a leader, how do you really identify those things, those strengths and abilities? What are the things that you're doing in leadership to see those? And then what is the process that you walk through to actually pull them out and enable people to live up to those strengths and unique abilities?
One of the things I like to do is you put them in situations with some projects and you start figuring out I don't want to give away all the eggs, right? You want to figure out exactly how they're going to react under stress.
Okay.
And when you get them in a team environment, you're going to start seeing as you assign like a project, and everybody has to pitch in for this project.
Right.
And you're going to start figuring out who's really good at this and who's really good at that.
Yeah.
And you're also going to see some of the people who think they're good at something and they're not.
Yeah.
But they get upset, or like some of them will actually you'll see them try to slide in and become like the person in charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it starts causing divisions.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I like to step in and we start breaking it down, and we start breaking them down on an individual basis to basically figure out who are you. Because once we can figure that out, then we can get you to start working in a team environment. So there's kind of a breakdown to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And then we're going to bring all of you together to make you a we.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like that you have to take an individual, if you're taking these philosophies of like helping them find their unique skills and abilities, and then, taking and helping round out the weaknesses, but not worrying about that as much, because you're worrying about how your team fits together, that you're seeing both the micro and macro levels when you're in leadership, that you need to be aware of not only the individual, but how this fits together as a jigsaw puzzle to come together, where you have the abilities working together and you're removing as much of the weakness from each person, not necessarily making them stronger in that, but allowing the team to trust each other in that process of walking through building the team. Is that like the way that you make a team really bulletproof, is by seeing both the individual and the team, and then making everyone aware of the strengths and weaknesses and how the puzzle works together?
Yes. You hit it right on the head. Because think about this. Once you've done that, you're also making them all aware of not just everyone's strengths, but they all know each other's weaknesses.
Yeah.
And that is very huge, because you've been exposed to a point.
Right.
Everybody knows your weakness.
Yeah.
Guess what? But you know everybody else's weakness.
That's right. So it's an even playing field, even though it's a different playing field for each person.
Yes. And when you break it down that way and you get them to understand that, and then and here's the other thing, some people think they have a certain strength, and when they're exposed that it's really not a strength. They actually have other strengths, but that's not one of them.
Yeah.
What happens is getting them to accept that and turning over like a responsibility and a project to someone else is very huge, because you're getting them to admit to themselves on a personal level, which makes them better when they go back to the company and when they get back in a team environment, that, hey, yeah, I recognize I had problems. Because what it's going to do is it's going to save the company down the road of this person trying to take on responsibilities that they're not ready for, and then things fall on their face.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've seen that happen before too. Some people, and then you have the people pointing fingers. Oh, well, this person never did this for me, and I sent this email. It's like, no, let's get back to the root of the cause of the problem.
Wow. And I love that, because so often we're trying to blame that we don't look for the root. there's so many things going on in our culture and our country and our businesses that are people trying to cut off, treat, replace, prevent a symptom without going to that root cause. And I think that that's the power play that I'm seeing you share here, is that you got to take responsibility, but you also have to go back and do the work to find the foundation of where things went wrong.
Yeah. And if you build that solid foundation with everyone, the one thing you're going to notice also, people will actually bend over backwards for each other, and they don't want to fail each other.
Yeah. In it together.
Yes.
You mentioned early on in the interview about one of the keys to leadership is taking care of your people. What does that look like? I like to call one of the things is, if you have a leader of a company, CEO, could be a vice president, depending on the geographic location, maybe you got a company that's spread out or what have you. But the people that are in charge, one of the key things for them is, when you're out there, first off, your company is like a bookshelf. Mm. Every book on there is one of your employees. Now, if you're the CEO and you got a whole bunch of bookcases, for example, you're not have a basic understanding of those books, like a summary, but you don't need to read the whole book. Mm. That's for the other leaders in the company and the more junior leaders, because every company has other leaders. Mm. They need to understand more of that book than you do. Mm. You just need to have a basic summary of it. Yeah.
Now, you take that, and what I like to see is leaders go park in the back of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Take a walk through the parking lot in the morning when everybody's showing up.
Yeah.
And greet people, look them eye to eye. That will tell you the state of your company a lot of times. Or if it doesn't tell you the state of the company, it will give you a very good indication if something is going wrong.
Right.
Now, I might ask you something, and okay, you got a personal issue. Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe there's something going on at home. Michael's got something going on at home. Hey, if you ever need anything, just let us know.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, but if you're going in and you're seeing a whole bunch of people and it's not personal, but people are just not want to make eye contact with you or something along those lines, okay, now you might want to start addressing it with some of your junior leadership. Hey, is there something going on? Okay, yeah, I understand. We've got a production deadline to meet on a new product that's going out for a big customer.
Yeah.
And maybe they're working a little bit overtime. Okay, well, there's things you need to do if you see that the stress is starting to get to your workforce. There's things you need to do, and I'm not talking about throwing a pizza party. Hey, we made production. Let's have
that's a symptom.
Party.
That's a symptom treatment again.
You just treated the symptom. Yeah. Basically, go in and have your managers. Now, this goes back to the manager training, for example,
right,
where they can give you unfiltered advice.
Mm-hmm.
Respectfully, of course, but they can give you that unfiltered advice, and you're going to take it seriously. Okay, hey, we do need to come up with something for these guys.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is what we're going to do with pay. We're going to give you that Monday off, that following Monday. Everybody enjoy a 3-day weekend. Yeah. Go spend time with your family. There's things you can do that for those people is going to be a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, doing the pizza party, I've seen some weird things. I'm like, that's not really taking care of the problem, because the problem's still going to rear its ugly head.
Right.
If you have a morale issue, maybe you have one of the vice presidents, bad personality. I've been places where I've seen 3 females come walking out of the bathroom. It looked like they were emotionally wrecked.
Wow.
Like they just been bawling their eyes out after a meeting they'd been sitting in for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
All by themselves, one-on-one with somebody.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable.
Right. That's not taking care of your people.
No, that's definitely not taking care of people. Matter of fact, that's called everyone's looking for a job.
Yeah. It's abusive.
Yeah. And, I've also seen where, a production line, like 5 people quit in 1 week, or put in their resignation papers, because they were taking a job elsewhere, and you think to yourself, well, damn, that was 20% of the workforce.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not good either. And you're trying to say, hey, something's got to happen here, because the production is not going away. There's a huge order that just came in or what have you.
Work still has to get done, and you've got to solve a bigger problem now, because your team doesn't obviously value what you're doing, and the problem's probably you.
Yeah. And, if you're a good leader, and I like to call it the walk, you go from the parking lot, and you walk all the way in.
Yeah.
Stop, have some coffee, grab a cup of coffee, where say you have an area where or maybe even a cafeteria where the employees are at, and just sit down and just ask people how they're doing.
Yeah.
Just
so good.
But don't take yourself so serious that you look at your position in the company as that's who you are.
Right.
You can't look at yourself as a CEO or some person in a company and think, well, I'm so and so.
Right.
And there's a lot of that goes on. And, it's understanding yourself as a leader and not taking yourself so serious. Because if you were to lose your job, who are you? You're nobody now.
Right.
So you have to have that self-awareness.
Right. So good. Lots of good conversation here for sure. We're going to take a break here. And when we come back, we're going to do rapid fire questions with Doug Ward. So you have a big idea and dream, but you don't know what to do next. Well, I would love to meet with you, whether it's on Skype or in person or even a phone call. Let's connect up and let's talk through the ideas and dreams you have and come up with a strategy that will work for you. How can you connect? Head on over to jumblethink.com where you can drop us an email through our contact page, or you can shoot me an email, mike@jumblethink.com. I'd love to hear how we can help you and start the journey of getting you past a dream and into making the dream a reality. So head on over to jumblethink.com and let's start a conversation. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions with Doug Ward.
Levez seulement le bras pour mettre l'aiguille sur le disque. Mettez le contact. Reposez votre bras.
We are back with Doug Ward. All right, Doug, are you ready for rapid fire questions?
I'm ready.
All right, first question. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A Marine.
What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Ask questions.
Love that. What is one change you would like to see in the world?
More respect for everyone, towards everyone else.
Yeah, that's really good. What do you want your legacy to be?
Just a person that tried it and gave his best every day and tried to treat everybody with respect.
Where do you find inspiration?
Just never giving up. To me, it's always the never give up attitude.
Yeah.
No matter how bad things are going to get, they can't get any worse.
Wow.
You always have a way to go up.
What is one book you think every dreamer should read?
If you're a dreamer, I would say, and this is an old dated book, but Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because if you're a dreamer and you want to make your dreams come true, you have to talk to other people. And that book tells you how to talk to people and treat others with respect.
So good. For you, how do you define success?
Success is understanding where you are and where you want to go. And not so much about money, but about the positive impact you're making every day.
What is one trend you're currently excited about?
I like the new internet that SpaceX is going to be putting up with satellites.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to bring more connection with more people around the world. You and I talked earlier about the places where people can contact me, for example.
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I've made so much contact with people around the world.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn as business contacts. And I think it's very huge, not just, like for myself, but for anybody who wants to take advantage of that. All you have to do, the world's your oyster when you're on the internet.
Yeah. What is one habit that you find helpful in your life?
Consistency.
What is one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
You're not going to know everything, and don't pretend like you do.
Failure of many of us. I know that. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
I think I might be climbing some mountains.
Nice. And our final rapid fire question. What is one dream you're still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
Go to Australia.
Love that. As we wrap up today's show, we always like to leave our guests have a final thought. What is your final thought for all of us listening today?
Never think you know everything. And if you don't ask questions, no matter how old you are or how young you are, if you don't ask those questions, you're never going to know anything because you refuse to follow your dream and ask. No is very temporary. But when you get a yes, you get knowledge.
Yes, so true. Doug, thank you so much for taking time out, being on the show with us today, sharing a little bit of your story and insights behind what you've done and what you're doing today, and of course, encouraging us on some new strategies for leadership.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank Doug Ward for being on the show today. You can check out all of his links in the episode notes. Before we wrap up today's show, I wanted to give you a final takeaway that I loved. It was the one that resonated most with me. So often when we're hiring people or when we're putting a team around us, we look for the qualifications in the wrong place. Now, it's good to know what you need to know to do a job. That's really important. But often we hire someone who intellectually looks good on paper, but can't actually convert because they don't have the passion, the drive, or the perseverance to do the job. I know for me, when I've hired team members, some of our best team members haven't been the most studied, the most achieved. Some of them have been the most passionate, the most excited, and the most curious on doing what they need to do to get the job done. I would say, as my final thought today, curiosity is a key element for chasing your dreams and ideas. It's a key element for building the right team around you. It's the key element for really achieving your full potential. When we stop being curious, when we stop exploring the possibilities, when we stop being in a place of wonder and awe and desire to push further into the questions that we don't know, that curiosity leads us to new possibilities. It leads us to new answers. It leads us to new revelation of what we didn't know. Curiosity is an overlooked aspect of what we do in our world. It is something that we're told to just follow the flow. And often when we tell our team, when we tell our employees, when we are told to do that, it shuts down the innovation, the ideas, and the dreams that are possible, that could be birthed, opening up new doors of what could be. So today, my challenge to you, the takeaway of passion and purpose and perseverance and that audacity to push further into the unknown. Don't count out curiosity. Don't count out the desire to push into a new possibility, a new future, a new opportunity you have never seen before. Now, I hope that encourages you. I hope today's conversation has encouraged you. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me that you would listen to our show. And it means the world to me that you would take time out to invest in our conversations with incredible guests and hopefully some tips to give you a step up on the journey to the future you could create. Thanks so much for tuning in. Now it's your turn to get out there, to dream big, and to change the world around you.
Vous verrez comment un simple disque peut aller plus loin que vous ne l'auriez imaginé. Mettez-vous dans une tenue légère. Ôtez tout ce qui peut vous gêner ou tirer votre attention. Cherchez la meilleure position. Les bras et les jambes légèrement espacés. Étirez-vous doucement, mais complètement. En avant, en arrière, sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.